Week 7 of the fantasy football season. Here's the top 20 quarterbacks I'm ranking this week. Number 1, Jayden Daniels of the Washington Commanders. Last week it was a good game for Jayden Daniels. I know the Commanders lost in a tough one in the fourth quarter, blowing the lead versus Chicago Bears. But Daniels, he looked good in that one. He was running, he was throwing the football, and he made some big plays, scoring 3 touchdowns. And possibly with Terry McLaurin coming back this week in a great matchup with the Dallas Cowboys that can't stop anyone. I think Jayden Daniels goes out there and has a monster game this week. Number 2, Patrick Mahomes of the Kansas City Chiefs. So Patrick Mahomes, he's been locked in all season long. Now he gets Rashee Rice, arguably the best receiver, back in the lineup after he was suspended the first 6 games of the season. And now this offense is really going to get going as a well-oiled machine, I believe. To have Rashee Rice, have obviously Travis Kelce, Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown. He's going to have an arsenal of playmakers on the roster. So this week in a great matchup versus the Vegas Raiders, I think Mahomes once again goes out there, and it wouldn't be surprising, 35-point fantasy day. Number 3, Drake May of the New England Patriots. What a season it's been for Drake May. This franchise has turned around in a short time now, and Drake May, he does it all. He spreads the football out. He can rush for yards if you need it from him. And now he's starting to get guys going in this offense. It just isn't Diggs and Hunter Henry. It's been Kayshon Boutte on and off this season. Mario Douglas had a long touchdown last week. And this week in a great matchup at the Titans, I think May goes out there and has another big game. Number 4, Dak Prescott of the Dallas Cowboys. Weekly, it seems like Prescott's going out there and at least scoring 2 or 3 touchdowns. CeeDee Lamb possibly returning in this ball game for the Dallas Cowboys as well, which could be a big sign to go with George Pickens, who's having a monster year himself. So this week in a potential high-scoring game with the Commanders coming in and the Cowboys putting up about 30 points a game, Prescott once again will go out there regardless if Lamb plays or not and have a good game. Number 5, Jalen Hurts of the Philadelphia Eagles. So Jalen Hurts, a lot of people are down on him, but he still goes out there and he produces. And this offense is due to have a big game. I know this week it's a tough matchup in Minnesota. Minnesota coming off the bye as well, and an underrated defense this season. But Jalen Hurts, he has all the tools to be a great quarterback, obviously. We saw he won the Super Bowl last year. A lot of people say he don't stay in the pocket a lot and throw the football great. And yeah, that is true. But if Jalen Hurts don't have to do it, and this Eagle team is 4-2 on the season, even with this offense taking a step back, I think this week in Minnesota, he's going to quiet the critics down a little bit. Number 6, Baker Mayfield of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield, he's going to be out. Chris Godwin and Emeka Egbuka. We'll see if Mike Evans for sure plays in this ball game for this Tampa Bay Buc team. But to be honest, it doesn't matter who's out there on the field for Baker Mayfield. As long as you can run and catch the football, he's going to put up points. And this week in a potential high-scoring game, we wouldn't be surprising if he drops back 40 or 50 times in this one at the Lions. Baker Mayfield, he's going to get his numbers. Number 7, Justin Herbert of the Los Angeles Chargers. A solid season it's been for Herbert. And obviously with the running game banged up in Hampton and Najee Harris out. Obviously, Harris out for the season and Hampton out another 4 or 5 weeks, even though Kamini Vidal last week had a big game. I think this is going to be a pass-first team. This week, a potential high-scoring game with the Indianapolis Colts coming to town, where both teams put a lot of points on the board. And to obviously have 3 solid receivers in Ladd McConkey, Quentin Johnston, if he plays in this game and returns this week, and Keenan Allen is always a plus. So this week, I think Herbert and this Charger offense are going to put points up again. Number 8, Jared Goff of the Detroit Lions. Jared Goff having another great season, and he was underrated coming into the season, Jared Goff. But obviously, when you're in an offense with Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Sam Laporta, Jameson Williams, you're going to work your way into points. And last week, they called back a receiving touchdown that Goff had, or he would have a 26-point fantasy day at Kansas City Chiefs, but he still finished with 20. And this week, Detroit back home Monday night. Tampa Bay's defense really can't stop anyone, and I like him to have a good week this week. Number 9, Caleb Williams of the Chicago Bears. So this Bear team, again, things going 3 in a row they've won. I think Caleb Williams isn't a great real-life quarterback, but the numbers don't lie. He's putting up stats and he's getting fantasy points. His floor is pretty much 18-20 fantasy points for Caleb Williams. And this week with the Bears back home in Soldier Field and a good matchup versus the New Orleans Saints, I think Caleb Williams goes out there once again and he'll hit that 18-20 mark pretty easily. Number 10, Daniel Jones of the Indianapolis Colts. Daniel Jones, he's turned around this franchise in one off season, winning the job in preseason, and everyone's getting it going and making plays. Josh Downs is getting it going the last couple weeks. We know Jonathan Taylor having a monster season, Michael Pittman a bounce-back season, and this week at the Chargers, where they got a leaky secondary and they're vulnerable giving up points of late here. I think Daniel Jones and this Colts offense continue to put points on the board, And this week, he's a top 10 option. Number 11, Jordan Love of the Green Bay Packers. Much been a run-first team over here in Green Bay this season for the most part. Josh Jacobs having a big year. Jordan Love, obviously the down. Jaden Reed is not really a true number one receiver in this offense, even though Tucker Kraft, one of the better tight ends in the league. But this week, a good matchup with Arizona, and Dobbs and Matthew Golden are playing good football. I think Jordan Love, he could go out there, and he's another guy, 16, 20-point range is a good possibility for him. Number 12, Jackson Dart of the New York Giants. So maybe I'm higher on Dart than consensus. I know last week was a big game for him, but this guy, he's going to get those rushing yards as Jackson Dart. 50-plus yards in the first 3 career starts of his NFL career, so he's going to run the ball. I know the Giants hurting in the receiving room. Obviously, Malik Nabers out for the season. Imagine this offense if Nabers was still healthy to go with Dart and Cam Scatterbo. That would be something for this New York Giant team. But like I said, Dart, he's a playmaker. This is a game, no doubt, it's his toughest match to date at the Denver Broncos, one of the better defenses in the league. But I think Dart's up for the challenge, and like I said, with those rushing yards, his floor most weeks isn't going to be low. And he scored 18 or more fantasy points in his 3 starts so far this season, 13 staying in the same game. Bo Nix of the Denver Broncos. Bo Nix, it's been an up-and-down season for him. This is a good matchup where this Giants secondary isn't good. Him and Courtland Sutton got to get back on the same page. And last week was just a letdown game where I think they went into London too confident versus the New York Jets after they came back and beat Philadelphia in Week 5. And then they went into London, like I said, and they came out flat and didn't get anything going. But this week versus the Giants, home game for Denver, where the offense has been better at home than it's been on the road. I think Knicks goes out there and bounces back. 14, Matthew Stafford of the Los Angeles Rams. Obviously, they're down Puka Nacua in this ball game, but they still got good backup receivers. Jordan Whittington, Tutu Atwell, 2 capable players that could stretch the field and make plays. And Davante Adams, if he was on 23 other teams, he would be a number 1 wide receiver. So now Adams, he'll slot in as the number 1 guy this week, and it's a good matchup versus the Jacksonville Jaguars with their defense. I don't think he's really that good. Number 15, Justin Fields of the New York Jets. Justin Fields, a horrible game it was for him last week. Now down Garrett Wilson. Obviously, he's going to be out a few weeks with the knee injury. And pretty much it's a collection of failed veterans or young guys in this receiving room. Josh Reynolds, Arian Smith, and Alan Lazard if he plays in this game. So this week it is a good matchup on paper versus Carolina, where their defense can't stop anyone. Teams are putting a lot of yards on them. But like I said, Justin Fields last week looked like a deer in the headlights. I know it was the Denver Broncos defense, one of the best units in the league. But this week versus Carolina, down Garrett Wilson, I still don't think the ceiling is that high. 16, Sam Darnold of the Seattle Seahawks. So Sam Darnold, he's going out there. He's putting points on the board. Him and Jackson Smith-Njigba, they're connecting and making big plays for the Seattle team. And he's spreading the football out, picking up where he left off last season, where he had over 30 passing touchdowns and over 4,000 yards. So this week, Monday night game, back home in Seattle, Houston coming in where they're pretty solid defense, led by Derek Stingley in the secondary and Anderson on the defensive line. But I still think Sam Darnold, he's getting to a point where he's almost matchup proof, and he's a gunslinger, making plays and getting the football down the field. 17, Brock Purdy of the San Francisco 49ers. So it looks like Purdy's going to return in this ball game for this 49er team. But this week, not a great matchup. Atlanta, we saw last week, they shut down for the most part that Buffalo Bill offense, especially in the second half of that game on Monday Night Football. And Brock Purdy still not going to be 100% in this ball game with the toe injury. George Kittle most likely returning to the lineup as well for the San Francisco 49er team. Kendrick Bourne's been playing great football, so they still got options, but PSO Juwan Jennings banged up, probably not going to play in this game. This week versus a pretty stingy defense of Atlanta and not having all his weapons in the offense this week. Purdy is a low-end option. 18, Trevor Lawrence of the Jacksonville Jaguars. The last couple weeks, he's actually putting up some fantasy points, is Trevor Lawrence. Him and Brian Thomas Jr. are on the same page. Finally, after the first month of the season, they couldn't really get anything going. But I want to see Travis Hunter get going and get more snaps in this offense, because we know the playmaking ability of Travis Hunter. So this week, London game, Jacksonville, that's like their second home. They've played many seasons in a row, at least a game there per year. But this Ram defense is one of the better defenses over the last few weeks. So I think Lawrence, he could score from that 15, 20-point range, but the upside isn't that high in my opinion this week. Number 19, Bryce Young of the Carolina Panthers. This week, a good matchup with the New York Jets. Last week, he went out there, had a big game versus the Dallas Cowboys, passing for 3 touchdowns. Him and Tedora McMillan got on the same page in that one. McMillan with 2 touchdowns. Jalen Coker turning to the lineup this week here. And Rico Dotto just makes everything easy in the backfield with 2 games in a row over 200 yards from scrimmage. So this week, in a game where I think Carolina could put points on the board, I like Bryce Young, especially in 2 quarterback leagues, as a solid option. And the 20th and final quarterback I'm ranking is Aaron Rodgers of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Aaron Rodgers, his numbers have been pretty solid so far in the early going, but he's another quarterback with a low ceiling. He don't have a lot of great playmakers on the team. DK Metcalf having a good year. He's getting nothing from Jonnu Smith or Pat Freiermuth, second wide receiver. Still no one's really stepped up and made plays, but the backfield is solid with Jalen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell. But this week, Thursday night, usually high-scoring games, and it's a good matchup with the Bengals that can't stop anyone. So that's the top 20 quarterbacks I'm ranking for Week 7 of the fantasy football season.